What's up, Benchwarmers? We're back for a fantasy episode. Marco, the interrupter, and myself, Diego, the stat troll. Thank you for joining us on. Thank you for joining us on this episode. We're gonna go over the massacre. Honestly, the massacre that was double game week 26. It was halfway through, Marco. I think it was maybe like Monday or Tuesday, and I was like, please let this end. Please let this end. If anyone's following, just to remind you all where you can listen to us, which is Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts by searching Benchwarmers FC. Marco, they can also watch us on
YouTube at Benchwarmers FC TV.
And we would also recommend and encourage you guys to share your voice with us, share in the banter by coming to any of our social media platforms, Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter by searching Benchwarmers FC1. First things first, I got to admit, and I got to say this because that's what I mentioned in the last recording. I chickened out, I bitched out, and I used my wild card. I bitched out. I was this close to a minus 28 because the last double game week in 19, I took a minus 16 hit and it worked out flawlessly. I think I got 119 points. This time around, however, I had a very odd feeling that Kane was not going to go off, that Spurs weren't going to score 6 goals or 4 goals even, and it was like that. They did have a good showing against Burnley, and it ended up 4-0, but how do I say, the star performer of that game was Gareth Bale, which I think right now his ownership is less than probably 10%, which is nothing. So, Marco, before we delve into how terrible I did, let us know how it went for
terrible you did? All right, whatever. I know. I suck. Can't do anything about it. So, I actually did above average slightly. I made 80 points out of the 75. But there's a downfall. As last recording, I said at the end, I said, fuck it. I'll use my triple captain. And I did on Calvert-Lewin. And it bit me in the ass. Now, I did have, and I was praying that Calvert-Lewin wouldn't play because my vice captain was Son, and Son did assist. I think he got 2 or 3 assists throughout the 2 games.
He got 3 assists.
Okay,
that's a double.
So that would have been a nice triple because himself got me 14 points. But no, it didn't go that way. Calvert-Lewin did play. He didn't do shit. I think he got assists, but still not even. I think he got 3 points on each game, which makes it to 6 or less than that. And then I ended up getting 12 points with them. I don't even want to try to get the math done. I think it was 4 points. Sorry, so it's 4 points.
4 points, yes. 4 points.
Okay, there you go. And yeah, I mean, it bit me in the ass. It's not what I expected. I was expecting at least 100 plus. I was expecting more from him, and now yesterday I was dying to rage swap him for somebody else.
Okay.
I kept myself from doing it mostly because I do have another player that I want to kick out, and it's just because it's too up in the air if he's gonna be playing or not. Actually, I have 2 players that are up in the air if they're gonna play or not. So.
Okay.
I was like, you know what? No, we still have a chance. Let's wait until we record and then decide what you're gonna do. You're gonna take a hit or not. So we'll get into that a little bit later. So yeah, overall 80 points out of 75. It's not what I expected, but it's something.
Not bad. It's not bad. Listen, you had some heavy hitters. You were able to capitalize on Diaz, massive 12-pointer. Out of all the clean sheets that Man City have kept, they did not keep any in the double game week that they just had. So Martinez 12 points, Son 14 points, just like you said. Watkins with a 7-pointer, decent. But in a double, again, I understand your pain. I also, if anything, I also feel like I blew my wild card because despite thinking that I was gonna have an awesome double game week with 11 players that have double fixtures, I only did 7 points better, 87 points.
Yeah, it sucks because I was like, I my end, I was like, I'm ahead of it. I'm ahead. Like, I know that Leeds are not going to do well. I mean, leave Bamford on the bench. Perfect. Let's go. I left Saka out. Yes, he had 1 game, but you know what? I said, fuck it. He's going to do something. He didn't play. He wasn't even asked. He wasn't even on the bench.
Yeah, he wasn't even on the bench. I don't know what happened.
I think he wasn't on the bench. I could be wrong. But anyway, he deserved a rest, so I'll give him that. But then Marcos Alonso also didn't play either of the 2 games that he had, so there was 2. So right there made Bamford come into the game and give me 2 points.
Hey, if it helps anything, I had Barnes. I thought I was gonna be smart and that I was gonna be sneaky and clever, and I said, "Oh, Barnes, Leicester City, let's go." He's been scoring goals. He gets injured 10 minutes into the first game. 1 point, 1 point across the double. Yes, and yeah, 10 minutes. I know it's a simplification. He played 50 in total for that first match, but Leicester City have looked abysmal. But there are some players that stood out, and we're going to get into that, Marco, with the watch list and pointing out which players I'm putting on the radar for our fellow fantasy managers. First name on the list, and this guy really hurts, especially having put my faith in Calvert-Lewin, Richarlison. Richarlison, 7.9 million. He's in form. 3 goals in his last 3 games, 4 if you want to count the game before that. Double game week 28 is possible for Everton. So someone like Richarlison, maybe not doing a straight stop for Calvert-Lewin right now is smart. But if you want to have Richarlison on the radar, I wouldn't go too far than to not pick him. Next one on the list, which some people already have, and this is going to be a major talking point from now until the blank in game week 29. Patrick Bamford, 6.8 million. He's an asset for that blank. There's only 4 games going on for a blank game week 29, and he is one of the teams, which is Leeds United, that are playing in that blank. Next one, apparently Jack Grealish has been cleared from injury. I'm not sure how true that is, especially given the fact that Dean Smith doesn't trust fantasy football managers with leaking all of his info. But Jack Grealish, 7.6 million, pending an update. I think he's a good asset to maybe keep bookmarked for the coming weeks. They also play in the blank. Next asset, Bale, 9.3 million. This one's a bit of a conundrum, and we'll break it down a little bit later into the episode. But 19 points in double game week 29, massive haul for Gareth Bale for the Welshman. He is 0.2 cheaper than Heung-min Son, but he hasn't played a full 90 minutes yet. I believe in his last 2 matches specifically, I think he got to 68 and 70 odd minutes in both. Despite him scoring the 2 goals and getting that nice assist to Kane for his goal in the game against Burnley, Bale is just off the cusp. I think if you're going to spend money for a Spurs asset, you might as well cough up the extra 0.2 million and not be a cheapskate and get Son, which is going to play 90 minutes in and out. The next one, Ainsley Maitland-Niles, 4.6 million, a defender playing out of position, played very high for West Brom, especially against Everton. He was taking shots. He's getting often into the box. If that's going to convert into points, I'm not sure. Again, this is a $4.6 million pound asset for your fantasy team, but any player out of position is worth it. And we've seen that with Stuart Dallas from Leeds and a few other players, which in previous seasons, the only one that comes to mind is Lord Lundstrom from Sheffield United from the past. Next one on the list, these are 2 Brighton defenders. Brighton is only in the watch list right now because they are, again, a team that plays in the blank, which is blank in week 29. So I believe it's Lewis Dunk, 4.9 million blank assets, and Dan Burn, 4.2 million, another blank asset. Whether Brighton or not are going to be able to keep a clean sheet, I'm not sure. But I believe the stat was they had 70 shots or something over the last few games in total, and they've only scored 1 goal. So as far as scoring, they definitely know that they're probably not going to put many in. So I would imagine that maybe Graham Potter is telling his men to make sure that they keep them out. In any case, Dunk and Burn, 2 assets, which on the cheap side could set you up well for the blank in 29. Next one on the list, Anderson from Fulham, 4.5 million, another Fulham defender. There is some shouts for Aina and for Adebayo, but I think Anderson is probably the most reliable out of those picks because he hasn't been swapped, especially in the latest games for Fulham. Last one here, Fraser Forster, Southampton. I understand that Southampton hasn't been keeping out the goals and they haven't been had a good run of form lately, but Forster coming in for Alex McCarthy, 4.0 million. He could sit on your bench and he could be a playing goalkeeper. Right now, I have a bench fodder right now. I believe it's McGill from Brighton, just to be able to stretch my money a little bit more. If I were told that if I invest just point 0.1 into a keeper that I could maybe swap if I have a problem with my main, I'd do it. I think that's pretty much worth it. Some names that are dropped and some guys that disappointed, absolutely disappointed. Harvey Barnes out for about 6 to 8 weeks with it looks like a shoulder, sorry, a knee surgery. The shoulder injury is actually Rashford, and we'll get into that later. But the knee surgery, it looks like it's something that Barnes is going to need, dropped. Jamie Vardy not doing anything, also dropped. I think it's 2 blanks for him. Rashford, he had 2 blanks as well. Apparently, he's been playing through a shoulder injury, which may need surgery. And with Bruno misfiring, I don't think it's worth bringing someone as expensive as Rashford for 9.6 million when you have tried assets for in Spurs like Bale and Son. Madison, another injury crisis for Leicester City with his hip injury. He looked to have avoided surgery, apparently. He played a few matches. Then he kind of messed with it a little bit. He hasn't been playing. So I think he has to be dropped now. Aina from Fulham, the defender, like I mentioned, he was subbed off at halftime. Wouldn't really trust him. And the last one here, one that I am glad that I avoided, Alonso and Chilwell, because Tommy T has been kind of messing with us a little bit with that wing back role. He started Alonso in 5 of the first 6 games that he was in charge, dropped Chilwell completely, and then Chilwell magically starts the last 2 games. So it's a toss up for those guys. And Chelsea, I believe, is starting to get into a bit of a roulette and fraud. How would we say it? Fraudonomics from Pep. So that's the way Tuchel is managing his squad. Marco, before we get into the notes and questions, just reviewing right now the Benchwarmers Fantasy League. I'm still sitting in first by some luck because I definitely fluffed it this past double game week. 87 points, like I mentioned. Second place in Kepa We Trust, a tried and true manager that's been there in the top spots and around there since the beginning of the season. Sonaldo7, our very own Josue, making a tremendous comeback and a push into the top spots for our fantasy league, 107 points. He had a very, very good time with triple captain and human son. And the top 4 rounded out by I Love You, Hannah. Looking into where the rest of the bench is, we have Gat in 10th place. He had a small little red arrow, 91 points. Nick in 12th with 81 points. Eric in 15th with 77, bragging that he hasn't made a single change all year in 2021. No transfers made. And it got messy. Let's party. Our very own Marco in 20th with 80 points notched this week. Marco, looking at the ownership and looking at your team, and this hurts me. Believe me, it hurts me, but it has to be said. Bruno Fernandes, he hasn't been scoring. He registered 2 blanks, 3 straight 0-0 draws for United. And I'm gonna ask you this, just based off of fantasy, is it time? Do you feel like it's time to drop the Magnifico?
Yeah, fuck. Who you guys play in the next 3 games? Give me 3 games.
So it's a doozy. We play City.
Uh-huh.
Then I believe we next play a bottom side West Ham. Sorry, not a bottom side. I thought it was Burnley. We play City, we play West Ham, and then we blank. And then we don't play in 29. So
Drop
we
them.
play strongly. We play straight 2 of the strongest defenses in the league.
Okay. So insert Diego's rant here, and then okay. And I'm not gonna insert it, by the way. And then drop them. I say drop him if you have the chance. The problem is not dropping him. Is who do you pick up in his place?
Yep.
Because unless you want to go for take your chances on someone like Bale, because he's also registered as a midfielder, because he is scoring right now, because he is getting involved with Spurs, that could be somebody that you might be able to pick up, and you'll get cash back, because I think, if I'm not mistaken, Fernandez is at 11, right, or 10 plus.
I think he's
I'll double check right now.
I haven't seen his price
All right, so he's at 11.3 on my
Because I've
end,
kept
but
him for a while.
he might have gone up because I've had him since last year. So
No,
he might be at 11.4 maybe or
no, I
11.5.
think right now he's 11.6.
Okay.
He's 11.6.
Okay. So Bale is at
3.
9.3. I just checked. I think yeah. So that's something that to consider just because I don't want to say he's informed because again, it's also Bale and as a Madridista and a person that has seen Bale play throughout the years, I know that he's injury prone. So it can happen at any time.
Yep.
So I'm not trying to jinx it. I'm just saying that that's a player that you could consider, but at the same time, you also have to consider that he is also an injury
Yes.
prone player. So, but I don't see Fernandez being the only one that you can to consider to be replaced in your squad.
Okay, that's an interesting shout. Who else you got?
I would also consider for the people that have Salah because Salah is
Yes.
also another player, and the way that Liverpool are looking right now, not
Not
even
good.
the front three are helping to dig themselves out of the hole that they're falling into. So as of right now, haven't seen Salah do much to to keep him in my squad.
Hmm.
Now there is so many players that I would like to take out. I just don't think right now is the best time for me to use my wild card.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
But those are two players that I would eventually see who I would trade out for. But yeah, to reiterate your question, yes, I would consider taking Fernandez out.
To reiterate the question, Fernandez out. You heard it here on the Benchwarmers Fantasy Podcast. It looks like it's time to part ways with our beautiful Portuguese prince. And maybe, you know what? Maybe it's been my fault. Maybe since I've kept Bruno on my team for this long, maybe that's why United aren't scoring.
I mean, the minute I picked him up, he gave me a good couple of weeks, but then he went down. So maybe I should get rid of him. And then the world likes to bite me in the ass. So the minute I get rid of him, he'll start scoring goals, and that's just how the world works. In my world.
Yeah, it is. It is how it works sometimes. But again, just to drive the point about Bruno, the ownership shouldn't really affect your decision or your choice. You know, a lot of people have Bruno. I believe the last time checked, it was over 60% in the teams that he's in. I feel like a lot of people might ship him out specifically because not just that they're fed up, but also seeing how United haven't scored in the last 2 games, and then they're up with two very pretty good teams. You know, West Ham are where they are because they've held their own, and Man City are just steamrolling through the rest of the league. To be honest, at least in fantasy terms, they're a well-oiled squad, and it doesn't look like they're going to be conceding much in the next few weeks. The next thing that kind of compounds the problem for both Salah and Bruno is if you do hold on to them, then you're stuck with them for the blank in game week 29, which they don't play. So this is a big decision to make, but we're gonna get to it. We're gonna get to it. The next thing that I want to bring up is, since you mentioned it, Marco, it's a good segue. Gareth Bale. Gareth Bale showing up and scoring his goals, setting up the assist. Is now the time to triple up on Spurs assets? I don't think so. I think the maximum, to give it to you guys straight, 2 players from Spurs should be the max that you're rocking with. Either Son or Kane, Son and Bale, or Bale and Kane, not all three. I think if you do all three, it might be too many eggs in one basket. Hell, if you want to have fun with it and get all three, by all means. But again, disclaimer, disclaimer, disclaimer. The effect of Bale though on the team has been pretty positive. So I wouldn't be surprised if he goes on a run, especially considering the fact that the next fixture they have is a badly defensively organized Palace. They might get Wilfred Zaha, which might change the landscape a little bit. And then they have the London Derby, which Spurs have been competitive as of late, but I think that matchup is very even. I think right now with how Arsenal are performing and how Spurs are underperforming, I think that could go either way. To be honest, even if it's a draw and nobody scores and it's 0-0, I don't know. The only good thing to Spurs, which we haven't been able to say about Bruno or Salah, is that they play in the blank in game week 29. They have a game against Aston Villa. It is against superhero Emi Martinez, which has now 14 clean sheets to his name. But if you have Spurs assets or you invest in Spurs assets, you're actually setting yourself up to be well covered for the future. What do we do about blank game week 29 though? And I'm going to address that very quickly because I'm pretty sure we're going to talk about it a lot in the next 2 or 3 weeks. Blank game week 29. How many players should I have? Marco asks. For
How
my
many players
team.
should I have?
Marco, I'm glad you asked. You should have minimum, I would say somewhere between 5 and 7 players for the double, for the blank, sorry. 5 to 7 players for the blank. The reason why I'm saying that is a lot of people probably won't have players to cover themselves. And
Unless.
if they do, they probably would be taking hits to make those transfers if they haven't prepared. If we think about the managers which are preparing themselves, they're probably going to use the following transfers from this week, 27, 28, and then before the deadline for 29 to kind of set themselves up. I myself personally, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, potentially 7 players already, just without making any changes to my team. I'm thinking of maybe bringing 1 or 2 more. What players can we target? I'll give you a short list right now, Marco. Kane, Son, maybe some Brighton defenders, 1 or 2. Martinez from Aston Villa, Watkins from Aston Villa, Grealish, if he's back fit, well, I would give him maybe these 2 weeks just in case to see how he looks. Antonio from West Ham and Bamford from Leeds. A lot of people happen to have already Dallas or Struijk on their benches because Struijk is 3.9. One of the biggest things I want to bring up is Lingard. Lingard has been a pretty hot asset for West Ham, posting up some goals and some assists for West Ham United. However, he does not play in game week 28. So he actually blanks because he plays parent club Man United and he's not able to feature as part of the loan terms. So if you do get Lingard, you're good for 29, but then you're also going to be a player short for 28. So I think that's kind of like a washout. I'm not sure if maybe transferring in Lingard is such a great idea. If you have him already, great. You might as well keep him, maybe even put him on your bench for that week and play one of your forwards or an extra defender. But I would probably steer away from him. Someone like Antonio, however, on West Ham, for the next few weeks, I would probably pick him up because it's more exciting than maybe a Brighton defender. Marco, if you were to choose, let's say, and shifting the conversation completely to Man City, because I know you have some Man City assets on your team, Cancelo, Diaz, and Gundogan. Are you looking at replacing any of those guys after what we saw this past double game week?
As usual, Man City screws me over. And with Pep, you just never know. I've seen all three of the players that you have just mentioned that I have on my squad not play in a match or two. Diaz was rested at one of the times that I have had him because I haven't had it long. Cancelo didn't play the first match, but played the second one, and then Gundogan I think came in as a sub on both, or just or didn't come in the first and then played the second, something like that. I can't exactly
Yeah,
remember.
he came on as a sub in the second, and then he got subbed off in the 88th minute in the first.
Exactly. So and then I also don't see Gundogan creating as much or trying as much now that De Bruyne is back on the field.
That is a great point.
So, if I were to change somebody, I think Gundogan would be the person to go for. Um, who do I bring in his replacement that is part of Man City's team? That is a question. And if you don't have the money to pick up De Bruyne, I don't know who to pick because Foden. I don't know if Foden would be the person.
No,
I
I
want.
wouldn't trust Foden.
I would have said Bernardo Silva, but he was also a hit or miss because he hasn't been featuring as much.
No,
If anybody, Sterling, I think would be the person.
he was benched for one of the games in the double as well.
And again, in the past he has. I think this is more recent, the Sterling benching. Um, so I don't know. I don't know if I would replace him or just leave the two defenders that I have for Man City and then find somebody else.
So the interesting thing here, Marco, and I'm glad you brought it up as far as Man City and not being able to choose who to pick. Interestingly enough, Mahrez and Gabriel Jesus were the two highest scoring players for Man City in the double, and they also do not feature regularly at all. Maybe with the Champions League matches coming up, we might get a little bit more lucky with having some consistency as far as picking up a pattern or a trend for who Pep trusts for Champions League versus the league. It looks like they have a pretty comfortable lead right now. Not saying that they're going to necessarily take their foot off the gas, but maybe Pep might coast a bit more in the league now that he has this cushion and put more of the heavy hitters, so to speak, in the Champions League squads. De Bruyne is a good point that you bring up, and we could easily afford De Bruyne if we drop someone like Salah or Bruno. But then we also get into the issue where many people that have watched Man City, and if you have recently, Marco, with this double, many would have share the opinion that De Bruyne just doesn't look as much of an attacking threat as he used to. So again, do you want to risk maybe going for a Man City midfielder? By all means. I think right now the only tried and true assets are Ederson and Diaz. That's it. The fact that Pep likes to take turns between Laporte, Stones, Laporte, and then maybe even throwing someone else in there on the wingbacks with Walker and Zinchenko. Um, Cancelo, I also, just like how you were going to do an anger swap, I was ready to freaking rip Cancelo right out of my team because I'm like, that's ridiculous. He's a great player. He's been doing well. He's been attacking. He's showing Pep exactly what he likes to see in a player as far as being able to occupy such a versatile position on the pitch. No, drop to the bench. So I don't have DS, so I was considering maybe a
Swap.
sideways swap to DS, but that would put me at a disadvantage for Blank Gaming 29. So Blank Gaming 29 is very much dictating my transfers as well. I did mention though, Marco, that I had a mishap with Harvey Barnes getting injured after 50 minutes of his first match in the double. Who am I going to replace him with? And I have a feeling that many people, I believe he had over 1 million transfers in, if I'm not mistaken. I could be making that up. I think it's like closer to 1.2. Many people picked up Harvey Barnes because he was in form. Who do we replace him with? Some names, I guess, that we can probably put in: Minamino from Southampton, um, Mateus Pereira from West Brom, Pedro Neto from Wolves, Ademola Lookman from Fulham. Many people have the next two, Gundogan or Rafinha. And then the other one, which I want to bring you in on this short conversation here, Bukayo Saka. I have been wanting to get in Saka for a long time this season. And the one chance that I had to bring him in after the Chelsea game, I blew it. And Saka had 6 great game weeks where he posted fantastic numbers. Marco, do you know or are you currently aware of any reasons why he wasn't featured in the latest match, or was it simply a case of maybe giving the young kid some rest? Because as we should keep in mind, he's only 19.
Correct. And I think the kid has been featuring so much, and he's one that isn't rested often within the game itself. He plays most likely the 90 minutes. Because they rotate the position. He plays left wing, right wing, or left wing back. So I think this one was more of he needed the rest. It was time for him to be rested, and this was the best time to do so. I think he will be consistently performing and consistently being picked for the squad itself. So if you were considering picking him up, I'd say go for it. And he's cheap. He's not bad. It's 5.4, I think is value.
Point two.
Point two. Okay. So even better. And you know for a fact that he will be there on the squad playing as a right wing, and you might get an assist or a goal from him.
Yeah, that's the important thing. That usually, if Saka is on the field, he is involved. I was a little bit scared seeing that Willian has been featuring a bit more, and Pepe has been getting a run out. But was Pepe injured? I believe or something. I think he was flagged in the game.
He for at least for this upcoming one, I don't see him playing. I don't know if he's injured or not. I think right now what Arteta is he's relying more on the youth, and he's gonna be using Smith Rowe and Odegaard a lot more in these upcoming games.
Yeah, I remember seeing somewhere. the little flag on Pepe, unless I'm completely making it up. It might have been right after the match. So the flag has been cleared. Pepe, 7.6 million, 55 points. Not quite there as far as the top scoring midfielders. However, for Saka, I guess maybe I'm just trying to convince myself. He is the top scoring out of all the names that I mentioned. You know, he has more points than Lookman, more points than Pereira, more points than Sigurdsson or even Traore from Aston Villa. He is just 2, 3 points away from Aubameyang himself, who has 96. Saka has 92. Looking at these stats, I think it could be my only excuse to take a risk on Saka, despite him being fatigued. Because I remember reading something about that maybe Arteta had mentioned that the boy was fatigued. He plays in the blank, and again, the blank is king right now. He plays despite him playing
West Ham.
West Ham, you know, I think the main hitters, once you have Kane or Son and maybe Bamford or Emi Martinez or even Grealish, anyone else that you have is just to probably pad your total for the weekend. You know, I wouldn't expect there to be ridiculous score lines. They could be all draws for all we know.
I mean, not to toot Arsenal's own horn, but we did. If I'm not mistaken, we did lose against West Ham in the first round. So this
Yes.
second round, you saw what we did to Leicester City after they beat us 1-0 in the first round. So we're out for blood, not literally, but I want to say there is going to be goals. If anything, don't pick up defenders on either one of these
Yeah.
squads. Pick up the main players that will most likely give you points
Yeah.
in
Exactly.
assists or scoring.
Yep, and I like that. You know, they play Burnley next. Arsenal play Burnley next, which isn't the greatest because that's the game that they lost. It was 1-0, and then I believe it was the second match of the season. They had just squeaked by and beat West Ham 2-1. So Saka, you know what, buddy? I'm gonna put so much pressure on you, but maybe you're the guy for me. Some 4.5 or less, 4.5 million or less defenders that you can consider for your back line. If you're looking to stretch that budget, or maybe you have extra money that you have unused to maybe upgrade your defenders. Fulham assets have been looking okay. Fulham, we saw it with Spurs. Spurs didn't put 6, 7 goals past Fulham. They've been improving very much defensively. Craig Dawson from West Ham, a great asset as well. Dan Burn from Brighton, Jamal Lascelles. Oh no, sorry, I believe it's Jamal Lewis, and then Lascelles from Newcastle, and another. Even though Marco just said to probably avoid defensive assets, 4.4 million. Pablo Mari has started back-to-back games, and I'm not sure if that's maybe an injury decision that was made by the manager. But looking at again cheap defenders, budget defenders, these might be the people that you're kind of aiming for. Captaincy choice. Just to wrap it up, Marco, and getting to the end of this episode, who are you looking to captain for game week 27?
You're killing me, dude. For this, man, it has to be a Man City player, man.
Yes.
It has to be a Man City player because they also have a doubleheader again. The game playing against Man United and then they're playing against Southampton, if I'm not mistaken. So I will most likely end up picking somebody from Man City that I consider a possible a possible player that will play on both legs. So in this case, I think it would be or De Bruyne or Sterling. So either one that I pick up, that's the person I'll be captain.
Yikes, yikes. I agree with you. I think Man City assets are the main captaincy choices. In this particular order, Ederson, Diaz, or Gundogan if you have him. If you have someone like KDB, Mahrez, Sterling, and you want to take the risk, roll the dice. I think you could be rewarded well. Southampton, I'm not sure how much of a fight United are going to put up, but just looking at their recent results and that they've held most Big Six teams to a stalemate, even though that's to their fault, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe the Manchester Derby ended up 0-0. But I can also see Man City completely keeping a clean sheet in that game because the United attacking front hasn't been really firing just yet. Kane and Son, second choices for captaincy, playing Crystal Palace at home, like I had mentioned, not a very a defensively organized team. Maybe the addition of Zaha into the ranks might change things a little bit. But as far as how they did against Crystal Palace earlier in the season, if I can look at it pretty quickly, they tied with them 1-1. So they were the results were pretty consistent with how they were early in the season, especially with it being a tight fixture against Fulham. That's how it was earlier. Um, Crystal Palace, we might see them score goals, but I'm not sure. Either way, Kane and Son, if you have them, you might as well go ahead and throw the captaincy armband on them. The last ones on this captaincy choice on the ladder would be Salah and Mane. They're still very good players. Salah, I've heard for the last like 2 or 3 weeks, why would you sell him? And I've said it myself. He's the highest scoring fantasy player in history, but he just hasn't come good. And Marco said it already earlier in the episode. They've been looking pretty lost, like at a loss for ideas, at least on the attacking side. So we have the inclusion maybe of Diogo Jota back into the squad. That could be a bit of fresh air for the team. Maybe he could be a good budget pickup for some teams. But again, if you do have Salah and Mane and you have none other of the a dependable City pick or even the Spurs picks, if you haven't gotten into your team, that may be who you go to. A differential, just to throw it out there, have a bit of fun. Mikel Antonio at home to Leeds. We've seen Leeds score as many goals as they concede, and Mikel Antonio has been a godsend as far as consistency. And looking at right now, I want to see what his returns have been for the last few weeks that he's been involved. If I can just open this up really quick. So Mikel Antonio with 7 and 6 points against Spurs and Man City, scoring goals against Spurs and Man City. He missed the game prior to that, and before that he had returns of 9, 5, 2, 8, and 2. So I think he's been injury prone and he's been kind of held back by his own injury concerns. But Mikel Antonio, that was someone who I was gonna swap for Calvert Lewin. The same thing. I could have anger swapped Calvert Lewin out. I could have anger swapped Cancelo out. It was a very frustrating week. But we're at the end of our recording for this episode. Marco, thank you for joining the fantasy episode and always participating. We want to thank everyone else who has also participated in our fantasy league. As always, reminding you that the winner of the league, hopefully it's not me, but you know what? I'll take pride for leading the way, even if I fall on the final day. But whoever wins the league will get a special something from us over at the bench. Uh, I think that's what we're gonna wrap up with. If there are any things that come up with chip strategy as far as free hit, wild card, triple captain, I'll make sure to cover that in the next week 28. So let's see what 27 holds for us. And that way, at least the managers that listen in on the pod for our fantasy series can prepare a little bit before Blank Gameweek 29. So good luck to everyone. Don't forget that the deadline is in the morning on Saturday, and the Manchester Derby coming on Sunday. And then we're back to hopefully regular fixtures and not too many doubles for the rest of the season. One big note I want to put in an asterisk: the Premier League has announced the possibility of pushing back the last 2 game weeks of the season to give every club the ability to host 10,000 of their home fans. I think that's a fantastic gesture to be able to do so. It may mess us up a little bit. I don't think they're gonna do it so that if they did it in the way that I'm thinking, game week 37 would mean that every single team would have a double, which I think is ridiculous. I think they're gonna end up pushing back the fixtures. We might have a complete blank, or they may just mix them in with other game weeks. I'll be looking out for that, and there are other accounts that you can follow, such as Ben Krellin, which are always on top of that for updates. Thank you guys again for listening. Just a simple reminder, we're the Benchwarmers. This is the bench with a voice, where the bench is always warm. Peace, everybody.